Hello and welcome to The Final Whistle with me, Steve Forbes.
And me, Kenzie Benali.
And a disappointing afternoon for Southampton as they're defeated 1-0 at the London Stadium by West Ham to leave the Saints rooted to the bottom of the Premier League table. Now here to discuss the match with us, we have Franny Benali and Paul Belveston. Franny, going to come to you first. What did you make of the match?
I mean, dreadful. I'm disappointed. I'm frustrated, Steve. A great opportunity again that we've wasted, and we can't continue it. We're drifting towards relegation with this kind of performance. We weren't anywhere near where we needed to be today. I thought the first 15, 20 minutes were pretty good. I think we were doing a job keeping possession pretty well, limiting what West Ham could do in the game. And I just felt that they were edgy, they were nervous. The supporters were turning a little bit on a few occasions. You could sense the frustration and the pressure that was on West Ham. And then we just go and quite simply gift the goal. And you cannot do that from that sort of situation. I get holding a relatively tight and strong line. There were probably 3, if not possibly 4 West Ham players that are in an offside position, but you still need to defend it. When the ball comes into that kind of area, you still need to have players attacking the ball and winning the header. You can't give anyone a free header in that kind of position. And yet again, we find ourselves behind, and then it's always uphill from that position. I'm frustrated. I'm disappointed. Like I say, I'm upset that we've seen that, because it was a great chance to have gone and done something when we needed the points. Simply not anywhere near what we need to see to improve on what on where we are at this moment, because it's game on game now. It's looking harder and harder, and I know we'll probably come to fixtures and stuff like that, but I'm upset at watching that. It was a tough watch, so I'm just trying to carefully choose my words and control my disappointment at the moment.
Yeah, Belvers, there was a sense of positivity going into the match, especially after the comeback against Spurs. But as Franny said, that was a tough watch at times.
Yeah, it's all evaporated, really, hasn't it? All that good stuff from Spurs. We've got someone on here. There's no one out there that feels more passionate about Southampton than Franny, and you can tell what he's made of it, how difficult it is seeing Southampton in this situation that they're in, and performing as they did today. West Ham were there for the taking. They are a poor team. They are a nervous team. They are feeling the pressure. And Southampton, for whatever reason, just couldn't get it together, particularly up front. There was so much space up front for the front four, and yet there were a lot of sloppy passes, sloppy bits of control, the ball rolling under a player's foot, 25 yards out, a couple of opportunities, Theo running through and the pass hits his heels, and I just felt, I don't know if there was enough urgency. It's easy to say, look, the best performances under Ruben Sellés have come against teams that want the ball, that come at Southampton, and then the pressing game has returned, and nicking the ball and being urgent and attacking them as well, and so on. And against a team today that seemed quite happy to give Southampton the ball, or allow Southampton to have the ball and sit back, Southampton struggled, really. And then once again, it's a set piece that's the undoing of it. So, yeah, very disappointing. And I said about the urgency, in the last minute of normal time, the ball goes out for a goal kick. Roman Perro goes and gets it, gives it to Gavin Bazunu. I had to rewind to check this. It took 15 seconds for us to actually take that goal kick, and another 20 seconds for the ball to leave Southampton's half. That's the last minute of the game when you're chasing the game. You look at how they were chasing the game against Tottenham. Very different, because in one sense that Spurs were trying to score as well. But back then, Spurs were trying to hang on to their lead. Quite why that urgency was lacking, I don't know. It's impossible to explain from my position. Just feeling flat, very disappointed, because it really feels like that's an enormous missed opportunity, and it's what we've seen so often this season. A really good performance is then followed up with a massive must-win game, and 0 points come out of it.
Well, let's get into talking about the key moments from the match, shall we? West Ham took the lead with a Gerds header. Obviously, VAR really took their time in looking at that one. They did eventually deem that onside. Belvers, we spoke before the match about the importance of those opening stages. So how disappointing was it to then concede in those early stages?
Well, Franny mentioned the stat, didn't he? The West Ham don't score in the first 15 minutes. They haven't managed it all season. So, Saints did well keeping them to that. And you could hear the crowd getting really wound up. They started booing, whistling, complaining, very vocally upset that so many passes were going backwards from their midfield and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, it seemed like Saints were growing into the game. And then Diachaleta Sarr looked rusty. He went clattering in for a challenge sort of just inside the Saints half. And from that free kick, Saints have struggled from set pieces. And I think that was clearly part of West Ham's game plan. Let Southampton have the ball. We'll sit deep, look to counter, and then try and win a few set pieces from which we can capitalise. That's the 12th time Southampton have conceded from a set piece this season. Only Bournemouth have a worse record than that this season. And, again, those two central defenders, for me, need to be organising that line. It was a very wobbly line. Sekou Mara is a very young man. He was the deepest. He needs those experienced centre-backs to be barking at him, right, you need to step up that. But, it was a great ball in from Kera and then again, free header, like Franny said, but he was between those two experienced centre-backs. I don't understand that at all. The frustration over the VAR is that it took 3 or 4 minutes to sort out. And the goal was actually ruled out on the pitch by the assistant and the referee. And then it took so many, you could see on the what it was like in the stands. I feel for the fans, but they zoomed in what seemed like, 50 times. They then finally drew the lines and so on. And yet he was onside, but if it's taking 3 or 4 minutes to decide, shouldn't it be like cricket and an umpire's call? Right, we're going to stick with the umpire's decision, in this case, the referee's decision. It's tough. It's picking holes. Ultimately, VAR has been under, a lot of scrutiny recently. They've made some very poor decisions, so they want to take their time and get the right one here. It's hard to argue they didn't. It's just very, very frustrating when it takes 4 minutes. And the most frustrating thing is that defending. Sloppy free kick to give away, sloppy defending for the free kick. You can't concede 12 goals from free kicks in a season.
No, you can't. Well, West Ham did have a chance to double their lead through Jared Bowen, who hit the bar. They probably deserved their 1-0 lead going into the break, Franny. And why wasn't it quite working for Southampton during that first period?
Do you know, I'd actually question whether West Ham deserved the lead. I think it was a case we simply weren't ruthless enough today. Belvers touched on it there. I think we all could see that West Ham were there for the taking. I think if we were more, trying to find the right word, but if we were more aggressive in our desire to go and take the game to them, why do we have to wait until we go behind, until we start cranking up the intensity or pushing or trying to get the goal in the game? Let's do that from the start. We've seen in games before how we've done well. Manchester United away. Okay, it was an away game against a side like United that are probably more open and more expansive, but we took the game to them away from home, and we've done that in other matches as well. Why do we seem to have to wait until we go a goal behind until we really start stepping things up? Yes, we could have gone in 2-0 down, and that would have been pretty much curtains at that stage. But, they were so nervous, I think, West Ham in the first 15, 20 minutes, and then they just get gifted a goal. I mean, they never looked like scoring other than maybe the Bowen shot that hit the crossbar. Yet we had one shot on target from Perot, a defender that Fabianski made a really good save from, to be fair. And then I think we had 3 chances on target in the second half. But yeah, simply miles away from where we need to be. The intensity, the desire, I think, the passion, the realization of the position we're in. I mean, nobody's any fool to know that we're not in a real dire situation at the moment, but we need to see that translating through the players on the pitch. And I'm not saying they're not trying, because they clearly are, but we need to be doing more than what we're doing at the moment. And it's even more crucial that if you're not scoring goals freely up front. You've got to shut the back door somehow. And really, if a team scores against you, it's either potentially a mistake that you make, and mistakes happen, or someone's got to pick out a worldie and actually earn the right to score a goal, not gifting them like we did.
Well, Bell, was Ruben obviously made a few changes in the second half. We did look good in spells, but there was just no cutting edge, was there? Although Paul Onuachu came so close to opening his account.
Yeah, and one of those, we've rather been crying out for some crosses into him when he comes on. I remember, managers talking about Peter Crouch and the old cliche how good he was with his feet for a big man, but then, I remember a manager saying, you've got to use his height. You've got to put the ball in high to him, because that's something defenders aren't used to defending against. They're used to playing against strikers who are good with their feet. They're not used to playing against 6'7" strikers, and Uluwatu is the same height. And he'd come close against Chelsea. That was another rare time that a ball had gone into him with a chance for him to attack it and head it. And it was a tremendous header, great cross, of course, from Prowse out wide on the left-hand side, whipped in with his right, and from about 10 yards out, it hit pretty much the same spot on the crossbar that Jared Bowen had earlier on. And then from the rebound, Kyle Walker-Peters curls one just over. And disappointing. I think you've got to look at the overall picture, though. Roman Perraud, Franny has just mentioned about the chance he had in the first half. Great save by Fabianski through a couple of pairs of legs. Perraud was the most dangerous player for Southampton going forward. He'd had that shot, he'd had another shot again, and put in a couple of. Your left back shouldn't be the most dangerous of your players. And I think obviously Shea Adams was a big miss today. He played fantastically well against Tottenham. Sekou Mara was tremendous off the bench, as he has been a couple of times in that game. He struggled from the start today. And at one stage it was Charlie Alcaraz and Theo Walcott as the two strikers, which that says an awful lot, that for a team that's struggling for goals, that's the go-to sort of second string front two, if you like. Onuachu came on, with 15, 20 minutes to go, and it's annoyed me then the few crosses that he has had to attack. We saw in the highlights against Tottenham how wonderful header from Sekou Mara to set up Theo Walcott's goal. Alcaraz can cross, Perraud can cross, Walker-Peters can cross. They're not using him to the best of his advantage up to now, and that was, what a moment that would have been. If Onuachu had scored that, who knows what he could have then come up with in these last 9 games, because of the confidence that would have brought him and everything. Unfortunately, that dressing room must be feeling even flatter than we are, which is, pancake-like.
Yeah, I mean, onto that, Franny, we've been able to feel your frustration and clear disappointment at the match, but where does this leave things for Southampton? Because fans will clearly be worried that that's another seemingly winnable game that's gone by with no points picked up.
Yeah, you've summed it up there, Steve. It's going to leave everyone extremely flat. But if you're likening it to the squad and the staff, they've got to pick themselves up. You've got no option. We've got, is it 9 games left now? Some tough fixtures. I mean, Man City, Arsenal coming up in the next 3 matches. And that's what I think adds to the frustration of a game like today. You almost think those games, if you get anything from them, those are the bonuses. It's the games in and around you. I've said it, I was saying it when I was playing, and it's clear and obvious for everyone to see there. You need to win the games against the teams in and around you to stay up. Those are the points that you've got to really be taking off your opponents and helping your own cause. I'm trying to flip my mind into a positive. It's still so early after the game, it's hard. But, the injuries were probably something that didn't help us today. Belver's touched on Shea missing. We've had 2 centre halves out with injuries as well. So clearly that doesn't help. But we still need to be doing more in these scenarios and in these kind of games to win games of football. We can't be giving teams the points. We've got to be making them work harder for it. So it leaves us in a precarious position. Clearly, we're still rooted to the bottom of the table. I think we're 3 points off safety now. We've played a game more than the other teams in and around us. So it's hard. But, and this is the but, it's not over yet. There's still points to fight for. There's still 9 games to play. Anything can happen. We've seen Brendan Rodgers leave his role at Leicester City today. You can see they're just going in one direction at this moment in time. There's a lot of teams still in the mix, and there's still points to fight for, and that's what we've got to do. We've got to fight, we've got to scrap, we've got to stick together, and we've got to go out and give it our best shot. I'd rather us go down with a bang. If we were going to go down and get relegated, I'd rather us go down having a right go rather than being a little bit nervous, a little bit safe, thinking, oh, I wish I'd maybe done this or done a little bit more there. No, let's go for it. Let's really go for it. Let's stick together, be confident, be positive, and be brave. I think that's the word I'd use. Be brave now going forward.
Well, Belver's up next. It is, of course, Manchester City, as we've touched on. I mean, an incredibly tough side to take on, but actually we've fared pretty well against them in recent times. Do you think Southampton can get something from that next weekend?
They'll certainly believe that in the dressing room, and when the players take to the pitch. They have turned them over already this season in the Cup. They've beaten them at St Mary's with their full strength team in the Premier League in the very recent past as well. So, you know, City are an excellent team, but they've always been an excellent team under Pep Guardiola in recent seasons. So there's certainly nothing to fear there. There's the argument that Saints are peculiarly playing better against teams that want the ball and want to attack and so on. So you never know how that might play. And, you know, worse teams than Southampton have stayed up from worse positions than the club are in right now. You know, you think back to Leicester the year before they won the Premier League, they were dead and buried with 7-8 games to go. And they went on an extraordinary run. I remember Fulham winning 4 or 5 of their last 7 to stay up, maybe 10 years ago under Roy Hodgson. There are reasons to still believe. It's looking bleak, but it's absolutely not over yet. And yes, the fixture list is tough, but we've seen today another team in the bottom 3 going up against them and losing. The other week, up against a team that was 3-1 up with 15 minutes to play. They were looking to go into 3rd place. You know, Spurs have some of the best players on the planet. Southampton came back and got a point, and they've beaten Chelsea twice this season. There are very good players in that squad. They've got a guy in charge who they believe in, who believes in them, and he's making his way in the game as a manager, but he has got a tune out of them so far, and so there's absolutely no reason to give up on this relegation battle yet. It's the closest it's ever been between 8 teams at the bottom of the table or so on. There's an awful lot of football still to be played, and a lot of reasons why Southampton can still, against the odds, get themselves out of this position.
I mean, nobody's doubting City's quality, Franny. They dismantled Liverpool yesterday, but Saints have had some positive results against the so-called Big Six recently.
Yeah, most definitely. That may help us in these upcoming games. I mean, you can't underestimate the size of the task against those. City are clearly trying to stay on the coattails of Arsenal. Arsenal were wanting the points as well to sort of extend their lead at the top of the table. So these sides are going to come out. They're going to play against us, and Belver's summed it up pretty well there. That there's a lot to still play for, and things to be positive about still, albeit huge frustration and disappointment at this moment in time. Immediately after a game when we should and probably could have done better.
Oh, well, that brings us to the end of the show today. Dad Belvers, great to have you with us. Thanks ever so much for your company. As we've mentioned, it's not over until it's over. We will continue fighting, and that fight continues on Saturday when we welcome Manchester City to St Mary's Stadium. That's a 5:30 kickoff, so we'll be live on Saints Live from 4:15. So do make sure you tune in and join us then. Bye for now.
See you soon.